side.
Okay. Great, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last meeting of 2019. I am Georgette Steffens. I'm the chair of the Albany Port District Commission, and we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves.
Joe Coffey, Commissioner.
Michael Sanquani, Commissioner.
Brian Kearns with UHY.
Alex Zan, audit partner with UHY.
Bill Kahn, UHY.
Dave Williams, Security of the Port.
Jim Teller, Security.
Christine Studo, CFO.
Megan Daly, Director of Economic Development, Procurement of Port. Almost forgot.
Patrick Jordan, General Counsel.
Richard Hendricks, CEO.
All right, thank you. So as you may notice, we have a new face at the table, which we are thrilled to welcome Michael to the board. Michael is the Director of Policy and Planning of the Northeast Regional Council of Carpenters, with a background in law.
Yes, I'm an attorney of Labor and Government Relations attorney for the Carpenters. We're actually renamed now the North Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters.
So we're thrilled to have you join us and look forward to working together on expanding the port and growing the economy in the capital region. So thank you. So at this point, I will turn it over. Bill, are you? Oh, I do want to for the minutes. Sorry. Everyone should have received a copy of the November 20th minutes. If there are no changes, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. So now I'll turn it over to Bill of UHY.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Bill Kahn, and I'm here today kind of in a transition mode because I think, as all of you know, under the state's guidelines, the audit partner, in an audit engagement, the audit partner is precluded from signing off on the audit for more than a 5-year consecutive period. So I'm going to transition my responsibilities to Alex. And I think, do all of you know Alex, by the way? I know some of you do. Have you?
No, I do.
Oh.
You know? So Alex has been a partner of mine for 10 years or so.
And with UHY for 20 years.
And he's been with UHY for 20 years. And Alex is involved with a number of governmental entities and quasi-governmental entities and some public benefit corps. So I thought he would be the best person to succeed me, maybe even better. But so we've met. We were here what, a month ago or so.
Yeah.
And this is a very important year. This is, if there were ever a year of capital projects and grants, this is it coming up. So you have
Well, just wait.
just wait. So Brian is continuing, and so Brian, who has been involved with the engagement for many years with me, is going to be continuing. So that's a quick overview. I'll still be involved, kind of like in the background. There's something good for lunch. I'll be here when we present it. Alex and Brian are going to talk about what we're going to be doing this year.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, so, and as Bill mentioned, Alex works on, I work directly with Alex on a number of governmental authorities and municipalities. He's the current partner on the City of Albany's audit. And from a public authority, he works on the current partner on the Convention Center Authority. And also in the past, he's done Albany Community Development Agency, Capitalize Albany Corporation. So he's very familiar with the structure and single audits. So I'm looking forward to it. Just a brief overview of the audit plan. As you guys know, we meet a minimum of 2 times a year. Oh,
This be it first.
yeah, that would help. So we meet a minimum of 2 times a year. The more exciting meeting is the second time we meet with the audit results, of course. But we like to meet, you know, on the planning side, just to get your input as the audit committee. If you have any concerns or want us to focus on anything specific outside of what we're going to focus on anyway, we want to give you a chance to share those ideas and make sure we incorporate it into the audit plan as well. And then we're really just a brief overview today, just a few minutes, just to talk about the objectives of the audit and the responsibilities and the general timeline. So on page 3, you know, the objective of the audit, just a reminder, really no changes from the prior year, but, you know, it's to, you know, us as an independent auditor, you know, to express an opinion over your financial statements. And, you know, so that's going to perform tests, you know, on a substantive basis, on a sample basis, you know, so it's a risk-based audit approach, so we're going to allocate our efforts, of course, you know, based on the more sensitive areas, whether it be qualitative or quantitative, you know, and so that's going to give you reasonable, not absolute assurance, you know, that the financial statements that management prepares are free from material misstatements or, you know, whether it's from error or fraud. In terms of responsibilities, so we have, you know, of course, management, and then you as the board, the audit committee, and us as the auditors. And the next couple pages really just highlights those various responsibilities. You know, of course, management is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements, adopting sound accounting policies, and, you know, establishing internal controls, following those controls. And then you as the committee, of course, has oversight responsibilities there. And then hiring us, selecting the independent auditors, you know, and so you'll sign the engagement letter as well, and just to know, you know, no fee changes from last year. So it's very similar to the prior year. And then the auditor's responsibility, as we just discussed, was to express an opinion over the financial statements. So we're going to, you know, plan the audit accordingly with professional skepticism and, you know, with, you know, according to the standards of AICPA. And, you know, and this year, similar to last year, is going to include a single audit as well. And if you're, I don't know how familiar, you know, everyone is with a single audit, but that's when you receive certain dollar threshold, it's $750,000 federally. And so if you have federally, there's an additional audit on the compliance and the controls specific to those expenditures that they're required an audit on. So it's a little bit more detailed, but we'll issue a report over those federal funds as well. And then deliverables and timelines, as you see. So you have effectively 3 reports that are issued with your financial statements. One is the opinion over those financial statements. You know, the second one is because it's an audit in accordance with government auditing standards. There's a second report over internal control over financial reporting. And then this year, because you have that single audit, you also have a report on compliance and internal controls over those specific major programs, so under the uniform guidance of those federal funds. And then if there was a management letter, so if there's any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that are identified, of course, we'll bring those to your attention informally. And also if there was any fraud, we would be required to immediately bring that to your attention as well. On page 7 is the rough, you know, timeline and planning. As Bill mentioned, we met approximately a month ago just to kind of get a general understanding. And throughout the year, we encourage management communication with us to make sure there's no surprises throughout the audit process, to make sure we're on the same page in terms of any unusual items or new significant transactions, to make sure that they're being accounted for properly, and any service that we provide. So that's an ongoing process throughout the entire year. But, you know, then in December, January, we prepare, you know, confirmations, we select certain samples and make sure the year-end process is going smoothly. And then, you know, the beginning of February is when traditionally the field work is performed, and then through those couple weeks in early February through late February, early March is when the reporting is done. And the audits being completed, because as you know, as a public authority, your deadline is March 31st. So at your March board meeting is when we would present to you those final drafts to be approved for issuance.
So the one point I want to emphasize is even this year with the transition with the partner, that our audit approach will not change. It's communication with the management is a very important part of the audit process. I know Bill and Brian has been communicating with Rich, with the CFO, and on a constant basis to understanding what's going on in the car, to ahead of time to nail down all the accounting for financial reporting matters. And we all know the Port of Albany, we have very tight timeline. That when he started the audit, you should report by the end, before the end of March, basically. With a single audit potentially, there's a lot of change on single audit arena too, including the compliance requirement. So we'll continue the process, have a good communication with management on that to avoid the surprise thing. Which is when you should be comfortable with that.
Yeah, so that really leads into page 8, which is the area of audit focus, and as Alex said, there's no substantial changes in the current year, but as Alex just mentioned, there's actually some key changes in regards to the single audit and uniform guidance. So they issue an annual compliance supplement every year, and in 2019, so they go off the federal year end, which is June. So June 19 year end audits performed. After that, they've made some modifications. And really, in terms of, I mean, you're complying with the grant agreement, and and you have controls over that. But the way we select programs, the way we actually test it, and our audit focus to make sure everything's covered, they give additional guidance every year. And so there's a few changes there, but in terms of what you do, no significant change. And the significant items, as we talked about, this year and in the future, coming years, your significant capital improvement, those significant non-routine transactions will always be a focus. Last year, as you recall, one of my favorite topics, right, is the OPEB and the retirement and the other post-employment benefit obligations. Last year, we adopted what was GASB 75. So this is the off year where the actuary does what we call a roll forward, but we want to make sure that that's being done properly and properly. So last year we had a couple back and forth with the actuary to make sure that was done, effectively. But in terms of the procedure being performed, no substantial changes there. But again, if anybody has any concerns or wants to make sure we incorporate something into our audit, feel free to reach out to us. Anything now, but if not, feel free to reach out to us in the meantime. We can incorporate that into our audit process as well. I think on the next page is actually we're not going to go over all these in major detail, but just wanted you to be aware that the GASB over the past few years has been very, very active, very busy. There's a lot of new standards being set, not only from they sort of take the lead off of the FASB, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, where they might be on a 2-year delay sometimes, but and there's some more in the pipeline too, in terms of they just kicked off some projects on the reporting as a whole and what that looks like from a governmental entity. We're going to have guidance in the next 2-3 years that'll probably be effective. As well as revenue recognition, because if you're involved with for-profits at all, or non-for-profits for that matter, non-governmental entities, there's been major changes to the way the reports look, and also revenue recognition standards, and the GASB has now kicked off a few projects where they're looking at that. But also, in the next couple of years,
The interesting is that we all know that in the U.S. the gap diverged into 2 areas. One is the governmental, followed by GASB. Then all the non-governmental follow the GASB. So the reason the GASB is very active in the page listed 6-7 here, they try to not scare the people away, because the FASB is also very active in there. So many projects even mirror the FASB project, like the lease project in there, the pension, which is talked about, Brian talked about for the last year. But the problem is it's not the same. So if you talk about lease, FASB lease, GASB lease is different. So in a way, the direction, intention to try to merge two together more close, at the end of the day, diverse more. It's just unfortunately. But what we'll do is, Ron mentioned that, we'll make sure that many listed in here may not relevant to you at all. We just want you aware of the 7A project will in there, will be basically effective for 2019 to the 2021 in there. We'll evaluate each standard that potential impact on the port, then work with the CFO, your finance team closely to make sure the proper implementation.
Yeah, so last year, the big adoption was GASB 75, which was the OPEB, and as you see, the numbers jumped because there was such a delay of implementation requirements for GASB 75. They gave a lot of lead time to make sure everyone was prepared, and that's why you see that jump from 75 to 83 being sort of now effective. Where this year, in terms of applicability to your financial statements for this year, there's not really any. The one about the debt disclosures, there might be one or two sentences, additional disclosures related to line of credit or some of your debt, but nothing substantial, where last year there was pages of substantial changes of how the OPEB was calculated and how it was disclosed. But next year, the 2020, the leases would affect you guys, and we'll make sure to work with Christine and Rich to make sure everyone's on the same page of tracking all your leases from both the lessor standpoint and the lessee, to make sure that is captured accordingly under GASB and disclosed in your financial statements accordingly. But for the current year, 2019, no major impact to your financial statements. And that's basically what I had. But if anybody wants to add anything, feel free.
I thought I'd just not add anything, but I just want to touch on something that Brian mentioned, and that is, it's on page 4. But the process, similar to past years, is we provide an engagement letter to Rich, and Rich signs it, assuming we're retained and authorized by the commissioners. But while some of you may say, well, why don't fees go down? There are other folks that might say, well, why don't fees go up? We're getting all this money, and there's more audit work that has to be done in connection with the substantial grant funds. But and this, I can't overemphasize enough what has happened over the past 3 years, really, on the change in the accounting that's done here with people and proper systems and processes. And it's because of that we can say there's a lot more money coming in here, there's more audit work in that, but yet that's offset by all the good things that are happening here. So I just wanted to
Thank you.
highlight that.
Rich has been working hard with the team to ensure that we were prepared to receive the grants in a manner that was appropriate. So thank you.
I have a question. When I look at, I know we're talking, a lot of this is about finance and the accounting and that, but I'm also looking at the things just perform risk assessment procedures. How do we, or do you, in your audit, look at how we are looking at our business software, transactional software being protected from technology risks, phishing, those types of things that we're seeing more and more impacting municipalities and businesses? Is that part of what we're doing?
Maybe I will share that. In the government financial reporting audit arena, we do look into IT, but mainly focus on IT for financial reporting purpose. That is how we base the issue opinion. We issue opinion on your financial statement. So based on the auditing standard, we do look into your IT component, but mainly focus on financial reporting areas. But we do have the service available to look into all the other IT component, which we normally will not consider specifically for financial statement audit. Like we talked about phishing, the IT infrastructure in there, we do. But just to answer the question in there is for the financial statement and we'll look into the IT piece connected to the financial reporting to assess on that. Then we'll have to get down our audit procedure based on assessment.
So it's a separate audit.
It is separate scope because it is very important many organizations, it's trickling down again from the commercial world to the not-for-profit to the government entity. And many entities have been engaging with professionals to look into, it's a great question, looking into the IT component in there, see what is the exposure in there with the data privacy, the very hot topic. In the past 2 years, everybody talked about cybersecurity, but now we're getting to the next level of the data privacy. Do we have a good system in there to make sure all the data is protected in there, exposure in there? It will not be a typical, it will be a scope of the financial statement audit.
Yeah, sometimes in the scope of the financial statement audit, in assessing the risk and getting an understanding of just the financial software, sometimes our IT auditors, obtaining that understanding, might have some overreaching observations or comments that carry over to other areas that they give feedback on. But in terms of the data security or the IT specifically, in terms of sensitivity of personal data, et cetera, that I was saying, that's separate services.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me, H1?
No.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the update, and we'll see you again in March.
Any kind of legal questions, and my contact information on the last slide of the package, feel free to reach to me to Brian and Bill too.
Thank you very much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, pleasure meeting you.
That's nice to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
really.
Happy New Year. Yeah, take care. Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
We didn't receive that letter yet.
Just sign management. So is this the last year of the, so we'll have to go out to RFP again?
Yes.
So then Christine will move on to the financial update.
So the overall change in the year-end forecast is a slight decrease of 24,000 to the net position. And this is primarily due to decreases in projected revenue in both the crane rental and the security fees. Our total operating expense projection is consistent with what we projected last month for the year. There were several increases and decreases. The main decrease was salary decrease of 25,000, and then we have an increase in both crane repair costs and service contracts.
Now, I know there were a couple extra ships that came in December. Will that offset some of the decrease that you're projecting here, or no?
We've for the most part included it in our
Oh, you
forecast
did.
for the end of the year.
Okay.
So we don't see much of a fluctuation for the month of December. So good news, bad news that there wasn't much change in our projection from where we were. We did have a busy December, and we do have some ships scheduled for January as well.
The price of scrap metal went up significantly, so it's good to see a couple more ships.
Yeah.
for that coming in. Does anyone have any specific questions for Christine about that?
I guess just more in the context of looking at how we finished 2019, looking at the first quarter of 2020. Do you see any variances in the budget for 2020 based on your forecast for the first quarter?
No.
Thank you.
We'll be meeting with Bill Ring to see, beginning in January, we'll meet to make sure that, check on where he thinks it will be for the first quarter. We'll do that quarterly going forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Christine. All right, I will turn it over to Rich. Instead of the CEO update. So turn over to Rich to give us some updates. Yeah, right.
Thank you. Just as a good note to start 2020, we have a ship due to arrive either January 1st or 2nd that has those railroad car shells on it and other commodities. So we're going to be starting the year off right with that. On a sad note, this morning, as you know, I'm a pilot commissioner of the state of New York. Tragically, this morning, we lost a Sandy Hook pilot. He was boarding a ship from the pilot boat, and as he went from the boat to the ladder, fell into the Hudson River, was retrieved from the water, but tragically died. He was a pilot that we just renewed his license last week. He had intended to retire in the next 2 years. Dennis Sherwood, a Sandy Hook, longtime Sandy Hook pilot. Still this month, December's planning board meeting out in the town of Bethlehem. They had requested that we hold another public hearing, and they set the date of January 6th at the Albany Housing Authority. Steve Longo has been working with us to assist in the location of the meeting, and he has also assisted us in notifying every tenant of the Prentice Homes of the meeting, so that they can come and speak on the expansion project. With that, because it's going to be a generic presentation, because we're still in a generic environmental review, we, Megan, Pat, myself, and Steve Wabert, the engineer doing the work for us, are going to be meeting with the mayor and 3 of the council members and several other, I believe, people from the city with the planning board on the 3rd of January to just discuss, go over what is going to occur on the 6th, just to keep everybody in the loop. I don't want anybody getting a false impression as to what to expect on the 6th as to our generic presentation, because I think a lot of people have heard our presentations, and it's not going to change, because, as I said, we're in the still in the generic section of our planning board approval. Hopefully, as things are going, we will get to the next step where we have approval of the generic environmental impact, and we can then start to go after projects. At the present time, although we've been talking with numerous people, there is nothing signed, so there's no projects yet to actually present at this generic meeting on the 6th.
What time is the meeting?
5:30.
Just for technical, it's a supplemental action to have this public meeting on the 6th. Because typically in the secret process, there's one, and there's 45 days of the public comment period. So the supplemental action was what it took to have the additional, since we have submitted since November of 2018. We've been pulling plenty of public comment in Bethlehem. So this is a supplemental action. The goal is to have this in the final GEIS that would be approved.
How are you going to keep it focused on that meeting and the topics of discussion, the questions on that project, and not on other things that are going on at the court bureau?
I think it's, for some of these people that we expect to attend, we expect that some of this will be all new. Some of this we expect will be, some redundancy. So our intention was to keep the quote-unquote script on project consistent, however, have an opening introduction on port boundaries, port commodities, port activity, and geography. and then go into the very specifics on the generic project and what has been presented.
But to answer your question, I think this will be as wide open as
Don't
they
be
want.
surprised
We'll-
when you get more questions on what's going on here than you do.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think
Just
we'll, yeah.
telling you my experience on
Yeah.
the Beaver Creek project.
And we're planning on answering those as best we can.
Just to,
Yeah,
sure,
that's-
and get 'em.
Yeah, yeah.
We've gotten them at other meetings.
Yeah.
Just
I don't see that changing.
The bigger difference between this and our last couple meetings is we're gonna have Bethlehem planning board members
Yeah.
sitting there, we're gonna have a stenographer, and
It's the real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
no point in hiding anything yet.
And we've been at the recent meetings too, like the DPC meeting and other ones. So that's,
So you know what the questions
Yeah.
and concerns already are because you've been part of those
and
conversations.
to Rich's point, we're wanting to be respectful of the comments that we've heard before about setting expectations or not. That was one of the concerns related to holding it, about generic expectations versus this is the specific project you can react to. That being said, there's going to be more meetings, so we all are gonna get to know each other. If we don't.
Yeah.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
I'm looking forward to attending and watching the presentation.
And the other 700 Smith Boulevard, working with all parties involved, a beneficial use determination has been drawn up. It's being reviewed. We still believe that this is going to be a very short cleanup of the hot spots down there at 700 Smith. It's a former scrapyard, and through iterations of different businesses there were some PCBs that were left in the ground. We are in the process now of submitting a cleanup plan for that through the EPA. And is it safe to say January we should have everything approved on that bud? And
What's the scope of the bud?
I don't know about that. What the request is to DEC is that we could use an aggregate of tire and other
Millings.
asphalt millings to serve as the both the cover and the cap. Because generally,
That's reasonable.
the cover would be 6 to 12 inches of soil, and the cap would be 6 to 12 inches of asphalt. So the request to DEC is to make the bud determination that this will count as a bud and as a cap.
With one.
Yeah.
Okay, the answer is.
Because at this point, we've been asking this was Sims engineers' idea, and they've been stockpiling these, so if they do, it will save all parties involved a lot of money. So their engineers just sent that back to us Friday night, so that's getting reviewed this week. If it's all in good order, it should be sent to DEC next week or two.
And then on the timeline question?
Just keeps going. I don't want to make any promises.
No.
In that, they could say, we'll see you in 2 weeks, or we'll see you in 2 months. I don't want to promise something.
yeah, we're hoping to continue moving at a very good
They have
pace.
been, both EPA and DC have been very, very responsive and much quicker than anyone on either side anticipated, so.
And just for geography, it's this site here. So we're sitting up there, it's here, and this is the access to the maritime area. So it's a fairly sizable piece of developable property for the maritime area, so we're excited to have that come back online.
And the other parcel, the old Durham School Services building, it's still moving along. They're doing their due diligence on it. We haven't heard anything that there's red flags on it from the purchasing group. So we're hoping that stays moving like that. That's about it.
Any other?
There are, one other other item under the real property development update, beyond the supplemental information that Rich mentioned, there's a couple other things on the expansion that I'd like to talk about in executive session, if that's all right with everybody. But the one other comment I did want to make was, we are nearing final design on the third component of our federal Tiger funding, which is the new maritime warehouse. So we expect that that will be complete and heading toward construction bidding in the beginning of 2020. So in terms of the map that's behind you, I really need to get glasses, but I think it says 4A.
The pink,
Yes, that's where the new maritime warehouse will be constructed. And the goal is that that will replace 4, which is the longest standing building in the port that would eventually be demolished.
And how long do we anticipate construction?
It should be done by the end of the year.
Okay.
Some of the construction work will include some immediate surrounding site work, but the design team that's designing this is also designing the terminal, inside the terminal improvement work, and the external pathway that we've called it, which is basically Smith Boulevard, from the path of the railroad to the Big Lift building. So that design work of those 2 pathways have been pivoting around that new warehouse. That is also nearing completion, but that part will be sequenced after this.
What's the schedule for putting it out to bid?
For the construction of the warehouse, the goal is the end of January to have the documents returned.
Any permits needed? Local permits? Water, sewer, stormwater?
They would, yeah, the company would need to do a slip and get those permits, but no,
Don't you want to get them before you put it out to bid?
this is just going through a construction manager.
Just
Yeah.
a comment.
Sure.
Because I know when we had the big lift warehouse, we had all kinds of issues that came up. They wanted being change orders. So just a suggestion, we want to get them done sooner rather than later. Because we can try and run real quick.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me right now.
We have a resolution in our packet. We did talk about this at our, we did talk about it at our governance committee meeting, where we reviewed the committee members and the chairs of the various committees. And so, in the back of your resolution is the actual membership. So it has Dominic as the chair of the governance committee, Joe remaining as the chair of the finance committee, and then Michael, you would be the chair of the audit committee. And so before you, we have resolution 17-2019 that acknowledges the membership of the 2020 Newport District Commission committees as detailed on the back. Take a motion to approve.
I move that we adopt resolution 17-2019.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, thank you.
Could we also nominate Michael as the assistant secretary? Our secretary is unavailable today.
Yeah, so is that as
I
part
move
of this
that we
resolution?
nominate Michael as the assistant secretary.
You're right.
Well, that was
It's not a responsibility.
Not my first rodeo.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. So that just allows you to sign a resolution, so Dominic is not here.
Okay, got it.
So everyone also received a little overview of the emergency demolition of 801 Smith Boulevard, and so it's something that we had as a board and with the staff had talked about the use of the old Greco construction building and talking about would it be demolished to allow for better access to the railroad ramp as well as straightening out Smith Boulevard. I know we had also at one point talked about would we move the construction or maintenance team over there, but after the city came in and did walk through the building, they deemed it unsafe, and so that required an emergency demolition. I don't know if there's any additional background that anyone wants to provide or feels like they need. I thought John's memo was pretty comprehensive.
So we're essentially just reimbursing the city for the emergency demolition costs, correct?
Correct.
And so that cost was $477,845. That's outlined in our resolution 18-2019. So if there aren't any other.
Yeah, I got a couple more.
Oh, sorry.
I just want to make sure, even though it's done by the city, that we get a copy of the asbestos monitoring reports and any releases like that, because that's still our responsibility. And that's always something that has kind of come up with the city's emergency demolitions.
Understood.
Particularly with our residents nearby, et cetera. I think it's important that we have that, we can feel comfortable that those were done in an appropriate manner.
Alpine Environmental Services is the one that did the,
Well, they always work with the town also.
yeah.
So, great, so staff will get a copy of that for our records.
Who did the asbestos determination? That wasn't Alpine, right? They can't do.
No, that was, our normal ATL.
Yeah,
testing.
Land-
Yes,
land
land
testing.
testing.
So the city handled all the emergency construction process, correct?
So the city came in, went through the building with their own engineer, made a determination that the building was unsound. From that point, we're removed.
Okay.
Anyone is removed from that situation. They then go out and do their own bid. 3 companies came, did their own walk around, they give the city a bid. The city takes the lowest bid, responsible bidder, cordons off the site, and then they're in charge of the site until the building's down. And then we get the bill. And we pay that directly, just a little different than what you said. So that total amount is not just a demolition, they're much smaller numbers. It's a demolition, the payment to Alpine for their environmental services, and to the engineer.
With the emergency declaration, the selection of the contractor, that's all their responsibility with
All
the
our
city.
city building codes department.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, so, resolution 18-2019 authorizes the CEO to execute the necessary documents to facilitate the emergency demolition at 801 Smith Boulevard at a cost not to exceed $477,845. Take a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we also have our ships and barge. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you do that for me?
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
just
I'm
brought
sorry.
this up.
Yep.
We just got the letter in from
Yes.
Chamber.
So, here's a copy of the resolution. So each year, the Capital Region Chamber hosts their annual meeting. We, for the last several years, have been a premier sponsor at $3,500. This is an opportunity to get in front of over 1,000 business leaders in the Capital Region. And so it's a great marketing tool for us.
Did it profile any of the projects of the premier sponsors or any activities? Not for nothing, having been on that board for quite a while before our movement came back. It wouldn't be a bad thing if they gave you a couple slides, even if it was on the silent part during the cocktail party.
I can check with Debbie Irk. I was gonna say, in the past, other than our advertisements in all the mailings and throughout the evening, I don't know if any of our projects are highlighted, but certainly
Doesn't hurt, it can't score if you don't shoot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so
because I mean, you
invitation
got
goes on
the slideshow up front of where
Yeah.
you're walking around. It wouldn't hurt to show pictures of the board.
yeah, not just our logo.
yeah.
That's worth asking.
It is good.
So resolution 19-2019 authorizes the sponsorship of the event at the premier sponsor table level at a cost not to exceed $3,500 and authorizes the CEO to effectuate this resolution.
So,
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry about that.
Can we just go back one point on the last action that you took related to the demolition of that building? I just wanted to have, you know, you'll be seeing one more thing related to it next month. That the demolition took it down to the foundation, which was heavily concrete. That was not part of the demolition activity. So it's a platform of about a couple feet off the ground that will
The
move.
loading dock that was on Smith
Mhm.
Boulevard and the demolition brought it down to the pad
Mhm.
that was swept. The loading dock, we have requests for quotes out now from 4 different businesses because it should fit where we can do it with an order woman business. It should be under our available thresholds, but we've got 4 different quotes that we're asking for on that. It should be a week's work to knock down the loading dock.
So we'll be seeing that at next month's meeting, just so you know.
And that will, the loading dock is what would be now the east side of Smith Boulevard as we
Mhm.
straighten it out with the future plans. The jogging a road around the molasses tanks down there.
So leaving that not included in this project was our request?
No, I think our request would have been to have it leveled, so
Yeah.
it could be
What
used.
that wasn't. I would assume they would have taken everything down to the river.
It was because of the nature of the construction of the foundation. There was some question if it was all concrete or if
Yeah,
it was
they weren't
concrete
sure.
fill.
When the city and the contractor were given prices for what we, after the building was down, then we had that chopped open so that we could see exactly what, so the contractors bidding on the next phase, just the removal of that footing would know what they were getting into.
We always had that broken up. The bids we received, sure, they were looking at, that was for the structure. They were huge numbers, the ones that were $1 million or $2 million, that was for everything.
Right, I was gonna say it was,
That makes sense.
it was
No,
always
no.
a factor that would have added to the type of work.
But
And
So
that-
we're still paying, at some point, out of pocket, it's gonna be 600 plus grand.
Yeah,
Yeah, 477.
I think we'll beat it. I think it'll be
Yeah,
fine.
we're gonna beat that.
Staying positive.
2020 is all about the positive.
So the project is coming, is being bid by us, not the city?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But
And that will make it usable too, in terms of if you look at the map on 3, that expands the maritime operating area.
But the numbers that John Coast was talking about, north of 600, those bids were only the structure, not the foundation.
Thank you, Phil. for-
I just wanted you to know.
Yeah,
when
no,
you
that's
see it
no
next
problem.
month.
Yeah. Okay, so in your packet are how we landed in November. I don't know, looks like, outbound was about the same as last year and inbound, was one less ship. I think we've talked a lot about how December really picked up And there are a couple ships that came in that were unanticipated, which is of course always great to see. I think where we were sort of last month was year to date was down a little over 50%, which still is, we're sort of seeing consistent. Hopefully that number will go back to 50% after December. I don't know if there's anything specific, you know, I mean, these are, we knew based on what we're seeing sort of in the global economy that this was relatively where we would land at the end of the year, but I don't know if there's anything specific, Rich or someone else wants to point out.
No, the highlight going forward though is that we're anticipating handling between 80 and 90,000 tons of wood pulp, and we're aggressively looking at the lumber business that goes with the wood pulp. If we are able to land the lumber part of that wood pulp business, it could increase our 80 to 90 to maybe 120,000 tons of total pulp and lumber product for 2020. We're still looking at 2 of the major power systems projects that were put on the shelf since 2016 through 19 with the litigation that was going on, but both of them projects appear to be back on the market for 2020. Now the big thing is, because as I said last month, everybody's just trying to steal everybody's cargo. We got to make sure that we land both of them here.
Any questions about? All right, so is there any other business before we go into executive session?
Put this, the dates for next year, it's just in each one of your packages, just so you have it to bring back to your.
And that's
offices.
updated from,
It's updated for the changes
great.
you asked it.
yeah. Okay, so if everyone can make sure that they put them on their calendar.
Change.
Just kid.
We at least have a little bit of cushion there,
Yeah.
barely, but enough.
Michael, do you want to ask if we start a little later next meeting, or can you?
I can make it 12:30 or 26.
Okay, so,
Again, well, a governance committee meeting that they, can we move the governance meeting to start at 12:30? Have the regular meeting
That'll give you enough time.
after?
12:30 start, I can do.
It should be.
is that for January?
Yeah, January 22nd.
Governance, yeah, never.
Governance is
Sure.
10 to 15 minutes.
Thank you.
So we're going to 3 o'clock instead of 2?
4:30.
2:15.
I won't be here for that.
Governance shouldn't be that long.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what
If we have to list the start of the other meeting, 12:45 would probably.
Right.
We'll just say immediately following this.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we, like to, take a motion to, enter executive session to talk about proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property.
So we'll go into executive session. For that purpose.
All in favor?
You guys are working at it, I appreciate it. Keep it going.
Yeah.
Hang on 1 second. Well said.
Okay, so there was no action taken in executive session. Our next, Court District Commission meeting is, January 22nd. There will be a governance committee meeting at 12:30, followed by the board meeting starting roughly around 12:45. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?